Hello, spirit folk, and welcome to another episode of Vanspirit, exploring the intersections between spirituality and van life, how to build spiritual practices while you're traveling whatever road you're traveling down or the road of life. I am just thrilled to be sitting here today with Dr. Marcia McFee. I didn't say this earlier, but I've been a longtime fan. Reading your books, and I've loved the way that you have broken some of my molds on how I was taught in seminary to conduct worship. You know, it's done this way, and encountering your work was a way to crack that mold wide open.
Yeah.
And so I'd love for you to kind of introduce yourself
Sure.
and say a few words about who you are, where you've come from.
Hey, everybody. It's great to be with you. Thank you for having me. I come from growing up in rural America, but having an airline pilot father. So travel has been something that I've done my entire life. So I'm very simpatico with this whole idea of van life or life on the road. I was in a RV for 2 years, not long ago. And so this whole metaphor of the road you're traveling and the spirit of travel, the spirit of being on the road of life, it's so great. My road of life took me into professional musical theater and dance for many years in my 20s and early 30s. And then I felt this call to sort of express my artistry in the form of ritualizing. And what that means is bringing intention to particular subjects. I mean, in the most wide kind of thing, and making that sensory rich. So it offers us, it's akin to performance art if you're kind of coming from the artist side like I did. But it says that life is deep and meaningful, and we humans like to make meaning. And so I became fascinated with that and that intersection with the arts. And so began to research and teach and do this ritualizing, helping churches be less boring is my it's my unofficial byline. You know, it's a very large market. But even more than that is just helping us all realize that we are what I call meaning mongers. Like our brains are wired this way. That spirituality is not something that's layered over humanity. It's like baked in. It's baked into humanity. And so this led me to a PhD in ritual studies and ethics. And I'm very interested in how making meaning creates the sorts of persons that we are and the way that we move in the world and how we treat each other. And so that's kind of, in a broad brushstroke, kind of my journey around finding my own purpose in the world and what juices me, juices me, and then getting opportunities to talk about it and do it. That's the cream of life.
Yeah, and I came to this conference a little bit reluctantly because I knew I'd get fired up. I knew I would get juiced, to do worship and to excite people. And I was a pastor of Unitarian Universalist churches for many years. And so they're very open to new experiences and inclusivity. But so I was kind of anticipating, since I don't have a church right now,
right?
I've got my YouTube channel, that I'd be like, oh, I want to do all this stuff, but I don't have that Sunday morning hour. Like many of us, though, like many people in the van life world, though, spirituality is bigger than church.
And I would beg to differ. Like you have a community, right?
Yeah.
And simply by talking about, with intention, things that matter, you are in fact ritualizing. Like YouTube is a space, a container for ritualizing. And of course, ritualizing for me is like this really broad, big thing. It's not one specific thing. It's not tied to religion.
Yeah.
It's something we humans have done forever. Roadside memorials, we just know how to do this. We know how to mark important things that matter to us, things that made our hearts break, or celebrations. We know how to do that. And certainly, whether you're on the road, whether you're embedded in a spiritual community or not, the container also is the road itself. And, I have this term that I talked about yesterday, metaforaging, right?
Yes, yeah.
Foraging for metaphors. So the road itself is a container for reflecting on the meaning of life.
Yeah.
And I know from being on the road in an RV for 2 years that it was like the world passing by on the road that brought me to some of my deepest reflections.
Mm-hmm.
And so just to sort of expand our idea of what it means to be spiritual community, like if you're resonating with this right now, we're community in this very moment.
Yeah, and that's why I was so excited when I walked in, and like in the first 5 minutes, I was like, "Oh, this is totally this is what we're doing here on vanspirit. We're breaking down the walls, and taking or just being alive in the world." And one of the first things you mentioned yesterday was some of the I'm not going to say some of the trips that you organize for people, these spiritual journeys. I would call them maybe pilgrimages.
Yeah.
And you said, we don't sightsee, we sight be. Did I get it right?
Right. So we're into sightBEING, not sightseeing. And the difference is, I take a group of women to Ireland every year, and I love traveling with people. So basically, I'm curating this journey, this pilgrimage, and we see some of the most incredible sights, but we're not seeing them as tourists. We're seeing them as pilgrims. And so that's sightBEING. Mm-hmm. And so, it came out of being on a trip with a group, traveling with a group, and it was kind of your typical tourist group. And I just went through that whole trip just going, oh my gosh, we're like on the surface. This is so shallow. This is all information. SightBEING is also about having exformation. So, right? So this is a piece I didn't do yesterday. It's about taking what you're intersecting with in the landscape, in the people that you intersect with, in the situations that you find yourself in that you never thought you would find yourself in, and allowing that to work in you in a way that's not just information about where I am, but it's taking that in and then exforming it, reflecting, and getting it out there, whether that's journaling or just, having ruminations as you go down the road, or whatever form that takes. People do it in different ways. But letting what's inside of you, what's happening inside of you, letting it out, checking it out, saying, being curious about it. Wow, I just had that experience, right? Being open to new experiences, being open to the surprise of it. And just lingering a little bit longer in places than you normally would. Like if I go to a place and I read a placard, like on the road where there's like a stop here for a site, historical site or whatever, and I read that placard, and then I just get back in my car instead of reading that perhaps and then going, wow, check that out. And doing a little bit of metaforaging. Okay, this is a place where thus and such happened. Where is, in my own life, where is, what's working on me? Like, okay, here's the prairie grasses blown by the wind. So what's blowing my life? What's blowing in my life that I need to pay attention to, right? So it's just taking a moment to go deep, right? I call it go deep or go home.
Yeah. I love that phrase because it's, my family will love to say, go big or go home.
Right.
Whoever has the most toys wins, kind of. Yeah. No, going deep and van life, or even, simple RVing life. There are people driving these big Class A, motorhomes down the road. Right. And sometimes some people are like, oh, that's just, but they're experiencing the same thing in their own way. That's right. There's just something that's pulled them out of their
brick and mortar.
Yeah.
Right.
I was at Overland Expo last week, and we did an episode on that. And there was this person trying to distinguish between overlanding and camping. And camping is you pack up your RV or whatever it is,
Yeah.
and you go to the favorite lake spot that you've gone to for every year,
Right.
and you create your house there,
Right.
and your TV, and then you go
Right.
back home.
Right.
Whereas overlanding, or I would
Yeah.
say vanlifing, is about the journey
Yeah.
to a new place. Where are we going now?
Right. Right.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
what are we going to learn about ourselves and the story that we're a part of?
Yeah.
Because obviously we're not the first people to get to that spot,
Right.
see that thing,
Right.
experience that river, whatever it is.
Or meet those people. I mean, you know, you end up in a spot and you encounter either locals or other people who are overlanding, and they may not be like you. They might not think like you.
Yeah.
They may have completely different backgrounds and experiences, but something has created an intersection in that moment. And so how do we open ourselves up to glean from that and just love the serendipity of that? You know, to just sort of open ourselves up. Yeah, I mean, it's an attitude, right? It's a way of being, and we have to cultivate. We have to remember to linger longer. And that may not be. I'm not literally talking about, okay, we're going to stay 2 weeks instead of 5 days, or whatever.
Yeah.
2 days instead of 1. But even just in the moment, lingering over a moment in time, a little bit longer, enough to say, there's more to this than appears, and saying, what is it that's there? You know, and there's plenty of time, and I'm not saying like you have to be deep all the time, right? But you know, there's depth in just fun and silliness and just, you know, enjoyment and you know, just hanging, and but to really, like, don't miss the opportunity. What an incredible opportunity. Don't miss the opportunity.
Yeah, I've used that phrase quite often in these first few episodes of ours. Don't miss. Life has given you an opportunity. It's a privilege to have a vehicle that's outfitted for whether you've thrown a mattress in the back of a station wagon or you've got the Class A. It's just such an opportunity, you know, that not to pass it up. And you bring up ritual. So I've been trying to think about ritual. When you're out in the world, where's that line between ritual and life? And most people who do van life, you get to a spot, and there is a ritual. There's a ritual that starts.
Absolutely.
You unpack and you set
Yes.
your camp up.
Yeah.
Which is, now if you're going, oh yeah, I got to throw the tent up, that's just nuts and bolts. But if reframing that as a ritual, I'm creating my new home.
Yeah.
You know, I'm creating the space. And what are we doing to bring yourself into that space? Cindy and I, we have these little Shisa lion dogs from Okinawa. We have a little Buddha. We have some objects, and we take care to bring those out.
Yeah.
To remind us who we are and what grounds us. And then suddenly, just that creating that space is very powerful.
And it's part of what gives the road life a sense of home, because that repetition and those particular objects that have meaning for you, they set a space that no matter where you are in the world creates this anchor, right? And so you're creating your space, your living space, but also your sacred space. And sacred is a word that really just means a set apartness. Right? So it's something that you did with intentionality, or, you know, and so, yeah, that is absolutely ritualizing. And if we can just understand that these are really important, this is really important meaning making that we're doing in very simple ways. And that's what I mean, that spirituality is baked into humanity. It's just what we do. And if we pay attention to that, if we're feeling unmoored. So I have this practice called CCC, coffee, contemplation, and candles. Candles, of course. I've got my pantheon here. Lizzo has been my CCC companion for the
Okay.
last month. And so I light a candle.
So these aren't saints. Yeah.
Well, they're inspirational
Yeah.
figures. They're Billie Holiday and Ruth Bader Ginsburg and Freddie Mercury and Frida Kahlo and Lizzo.
Yeah.
So
Saints.
yeah,
For many of us.
well, and saints are just people that inspire something in us.
Mhm.
These people inspire something in me. Creativity, celebration of creativity, a celebration of, despite all of these people had hardships, but in
Right.
spite of that, they had their particular gifts to the world, have or had, and so that's what I'm. So my CCC is that anchoring for me. So it's like sacred time. So yeah, it's space because I light something, and wherever I am on the road, I do this. I light something. I have coffee because that is the most important ritual,
Mhm.
right? Coffee and contemplation. Sometimes there's another C, the cat, if the cat decides to join
Okay.
me. But that's set apart time. So it's creating sacred time. And I know that when I like blow that off for several mornings in a row,
Yeah.
because of whatever, I can feel it. I can feel a little bit unmoored. And so that setting sacred space or time, those things that we do that help us know who we are, that ground us, that go, okay, all right, no matter what else this day holds, or this place holds,
Mm-hmm.
or this particular part of the journey holds, whether that's a flat tire or
Right.
whatever, there are these strongholds that can keep me centered and grounded. And I just think those are beautiful things. It's going to be different for everybody. You
Yeah.
have to find what works for you. Getting up at 5:30 and doing CCC may not be your thing, but for me, those early morning hours, that's it.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah. My wife on our journeys will do bird watching. It's sacred time for her, and there is a ritual. There's the way the binoculars go on and all the gear, and then it doesn't have to be candles. It's that
right.
CCC
Right.
is your thing,
Right.
But there is something also. What is about candles and fire and beverages,
Right.
food, and that
Yeah.
anchors us in something
It's
primal.
very primal. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
I walked
very
in
primal.
here yesterday and I saw this the circle of candles on the ground, and I said, somebody has made this space more than a conference room. Somebody has put intention into this space to make it beautiful and to put musical instruments around, and it was an invitation to go deep.
Yeah.
From the very moment I walked in the room.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the whole thing, go deep or go home. It's a play on words from that go big or go home.
Yeah.
But I also have found that what it turns into is go deep to go home, because going deep brings me into that home space within me, no matter where I am. And whether I'm getting on a plane and staying in a hotel or retreat center because I'm speaking somewhere, or whether it's in my RV, or no matter what it is, I need a sense of home. And I find that within, when I take the time to just anchor myself in some practices, right? You can call them spiritual practices or whatever. And again, like bird watching can be it. Sitting around the fire, very primal, right?
Yes.
Connecting us. I mean, we humans have been doing that for a long time, let's just say.
Since we figured out fire, right?
Since we figured out fire, right? Which now scholars tell us is a lot earlier than we thought. So it's pretty awe-inspiring. Looking at the stars, spiritual practices are, in my book, things that you do with intention that draw you into a more reflective state. And those the energies can be different. It can be very chill. It can also be very ecstatic. It can be like, listening to your favorite headbanger band or whatever, it's whatever brings you into that energy that feels alive and vital.
Yeah, it can be somber, it can be joyful, it can be ecstatic, it can be peaceful,
right.
And that's what we're also, with that intention, looking to ground ourselves. And that word gets thrown around a whole lot.
Yeah.
But you mentioned it earlier. It's grounding ourselves, not just in this moment, which is, yeah, that's half of it. But the other half is grounding us so that we're ready for whatever comes.
Right.
Because
Yeah.
suffering will come, the flat tire will come,
Yes.
the heater going out in the middle of the night will happen.
Yeah. Well, and that just happened to me. I just took a group of 24 people to Ireland, and the day before everybody was coming, I go early to get over my jet lag and kind of check out sites and everything. And I hit a rock on one of those tiny little Ireland roads and punctured a big, huge hole in the tire, and had to get a new tire and all of that stuff, which I had this moment of like, oh my God, I'm so decentered. I'm so like dealing with all this stuff.
Why me?
Why me? Why did this have to happen? I need to be centered to lead this group and all this stuff. And I knew the practices I needed to do. Once that was chill, like I got up early in the morning and went to the tire store to get it fixed right away. And I knew what I needed to do to bring myself back. And so when we have these, it's called practices because we intentionally, it's like a toolkit. We just got to go, okay, I need to turn this around, this energy around like that. What am I going to do? And I know what to do. And so, that's a great gift to ourselves and to the people that we are with. Right?
Right.
Especially in a little van.
I was going to say, especially when you have, 80 square feet and two people.
Yeah.
And a lot of us have dogs.
Right,
and,
right.
Staying grounded as a gift to your partner.
And as a practice of hospitality.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Another thing you mentioned that really resonated with me was the idea of liminal space. That time between where we, I think it's betwixt and between, right? Between where we were and where we are not yet.
Yeah.
And of course, the metaphor is perfect for van life or RVing or on road life or overlanding, because you'll have 2-3 days of liminal time.
Right.
And what are you doing even in those times? Sometimes I just like to acknowledge that. Yeah. Oh, this is liminal space, just like other times. Or
the Irish call it the thin space, right? So it's actually, when you think about the thin space, and liminality is because you're betwixt and between, you're I'm trying to say this, you're not assuming anything because things are changing, right? The landscape is changing. When I was in the RV full time, there were sometimes I didn't really know where we're going to stop.
Yes.
Right? Because weather or whatever. And so you're kind of, you're navigating. And so liminal space is really a time of navigating, which is a great metaphor as well, because navigating our lives is what we all have to do. And we don't always know where we're going, right? So not just geographically, but like in our own purpose, our own goals for our life or what have you. We don't always know where we're going. And the thin space is when, if you pay close enough attention, if you just stop for a moment and pay attention to the fact that you are not embedded, you're kind of on the move, there are things to discover. There are things to discover. I have a good friend of mine, Eric Elnes, who wrote a book called The Gifts of the Dark Wood. And the dark wood are those places in your life where you're not exactly sure where you're going, those liminal places. And instead of trying to get the heck out of there as fast as possible, what he suggests is that this is a time and a place for discovery. And if we'll just sit with that for a moment, if we'll just hang in it for a little bit longer than we think we can stand, that there are discoveries that we will make that we would never have made in a very solid, embedded, I know exactly what I'm doing, where I am, and right?
Yeah.
So it's hard sometimes because we humans also like to know. Right? Yeah. We like to know, we like to feel secure. And yet every culture has its myths about the journey. Every culture. has its, and every time period and geography has its stories about the journey. Why would we have so many stories about the journey if it wasn't one of the most important things that we can be doing?
Yeah, and we can get all into Joseph Campbell.
Yeah,
And,
yeah, right.
Oh, yeah,
Right.
these are
Yep.
archetypes that
Yeah,
we can't escape from.
right.
And I've shared on the channel before that one of the reasons I started this was life dumped my wife and I into liminal space.
Yeah.
We were overseas, and boom, 30 days later, we were in the middle of America buying a van and
Wow.
making an intentional decision
Right.
to not do anything other than this for a year.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to tell you this.
Yeah.
That's what we said when we first got into the road life,
Yeah.
the overlanding. We're going to do this for a year. At the end of a year, I don't know where you are in your year. The end of a year.
3 months in, yeah.
Okay. At the end of the year, we were like, oh my God, that went by so fast. And we decided to do another year.
Yeah.
And if life would have, I could have kept going, but some life circumstances, needed to change. But yeah, it's such a gift. It's such a
That's
gift.
how we're treating it. And
yeah, it's such a gift.
And a challenge.
Oh yeah.
Especially for people I've been driven my whole life to do the next thing. And nope, the next thing is the next BLM site, or
right.
And whatever we discover there is going to be the next thing.
Right. One of the reasons why I love travel is because of the people that I meet.
Mm-hmm.
Like we're having this great conversation.
Yeah.
I get to connect with you in a way that our paths never would have crossed had we not both been on the road at this moment.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I find that everywhere I go, I have friends that I have made all over that I intentionally stay in touch with, because that's work. You have to work at it.
Mm-hmm.
But it is now a network of beloveds all over the world.
That's amazing.
So even the challenges is a gift. Sometimes it takes hindsight to see that. But in the end, it's a gift. And not everybody gets to do it. Not everybody gets to do this kind of road life.
Right.
And so what a privilege.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for sitting down and having a chat with me. Anything?
And you?
And you, yes. I've named the audience the Spirit Folk.
Spirit Folk. I love that. I love that. Yeah.
This channel comes out of my other work called Spirit Work, so it's kind of
nice.
A continuation.
Yeah.
But anything you'd like to add as a concluding thoughts?
I just, take a deep breath, sigh on the way out, and feel this moment, because this moment, even just saying this moment has passed, and now it's this moment. And it's precious, this life, this breath, this heartbeat, this connection. It's precious. So enjoy the road, enjoy the journey, sit in the liminal spaces, and see what there is to discover.
Well, thank you again, and just Google Marcia McFee, Dr. Marcia McFee, and you will get books and videos and more information. Just treat to have this time.
Yeah.
And so until we see each other again, keep moving.